All right, this is the July edition of the Release Configure Monitor Field Week. We're gonna get started today with a short demo from Seb.
I'm starting first. All right, let's start first. That was a surprise. I thought I wouldn't first. Okay, I have an updated demo, and it's a different demo that I wrote because we have some problems with our staging environments. But so I'll show a little preview of our new UI, which will be very quick. But I'll answer questions as well. So let's see. Here we go. So where are we? Can you see something that says welcome to GitLab Observability UI? Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. This is running locally. So this is our fork of Grafana that we're starting to restyle and everything. So don't mind some of the things when it says Grafana or not. The background will change here as well, because I think that's their artwork, and I have to check. But basically, I'm going to log in. Just if you're familiar with Grafana, this will be basically the same thing, but I'm showing what we're starting to restyle. So we removed the blog and all the other like call to actions that were on this page. We're trying to, and there's going to be a few more that are going to get changed, like these links and everything are going to get changed. We want to make this interface less call to action, but more direct usable. Why? Because this is a place where you can store links to dashboard, create some panels to preview things in Grafana, but is often underutilized. You have a lot of other pieces like blog posts, and people don't often know what to do with that page. So since our product is by default already embedded within our own product through at first an iframe, we will not put 1,000 call to actions here since it's already part of a product. Then the next thing is, well, we've done small updates, right? Like like our logo and things like this. We're also removing all kinds of functionality. There was, for example, an alerting tab here that we removed because it's a legacy way of doing alerting within Grafana that we don't want to support. It's not the Prometheus manner. What else? We're going to still be cleaning up a lot more things. Right now, Grafana and this supports a lot of data sources, but some of them are enterprise that we're going to not support. And we're going to also dial down the support of these different data sources to a few essential ones, like Prometheus. Probably I'll have Elastic left in there because Elastic could be used in the future. And then Jaeger. The other plugins and things will get removed. Not that we can't bring them back in later, but we don't want to have to support things that we won't, that nobody will ask. There's a balance there. We could also decide to go with most of them in there already and then see what the customers want. But I'd rather have a simpler code base that we can build upon. Yeah, and so that's it. This UI is going to get embedded into GitLab at first with an iframe. It's not when embedded, the color will change and it'll look a bit more native. This is still localhost. It's not running inside of our branch of our staging environment for observability, but soon it will as well. So when I eventually show the staging, it might say Grafana and we'll have to merge things together. That's it. I just wanted to give a very quick update like this instead of the tracing demo that I'll give next time, and I'll figure a few more things out, or I'll do a video.
Awesome. Thanks, Seb. Do we know what will happen to the Grafana instance that we currently ship with GitLab? Are we going to gradually get rid of that and then ship this instead?
Yeah, I talked to the product manager in charge of that part, and yeah, we do want to over the next year do a replacement of it. I think we're going to have ours. Like it is currently there, and the problem is that it's not maintained at all anymore. And since it's the same code base than this, but this we're going to evolve. Instead, at first we thought, let's keep it in there for another year, but we're probably within the next few months see how we can accelerate that and replace it sooner, because after all, like there's no reason. The code base is the same. It supports the same things, but I have to do a bit more digging for that to know what our customers are using within that in terms of feature, right? If for example, we remove a bit too much and then they're using certain of these things, then that won't work. Yeah, that's the balance I still have to find.
If Zane, Jake,
But I'd like to
Dan,
replace it with that.
and everyone else can help us query that information, that'd be super duper helpful.
It'd be good to know who from our customers is using the embedded Grafana, right? Like, and if there's a place that I can go to check that, that'd be great. Yeah.
So Seb, I have a quick question.
Sure.
The dashboards that will eventually be displayed through the screen that you just showed us will replace the monitoring dashboards that we currently have in the product.
Yeah.
And what's the time frame for that? It's going to be next quarter or next month?
So to replace the current dashboards that we have in our product, basically with the embedded Grafana.
With with the acquisition stuff.
Yeah. So that's what we're talking about. Like the current dashboards that we have in there, and that's one of the things that's at first we wanted to change later next year, but we're going to accelerate. But I don't have a precise timeline yet because it depends on. We have to finish the bare bones of forking the project first, which will happen during 15.3. That's when during 15.3 is when we'll have a base to start working on, and we'll be able to start actually investigating and giving timelines on replacing the current dashboards in the system. That's why I'm hesitant on going a bit deeper. Yeah. So yeah, I forgot to mention that what I showed, the bare bones that I showed is what we want to put into 15.3 as the beginning of our observability components. And what will people be able to do with that? They'll be able to send their own traces, then their own errors for error tracking, but they'll also be able to add their own Prometheus data sources, for example, because we're not going to be able to remove that. We're not going to remove that. And we'll leave the ability of people to add their own data sources in addition to the data sources that we provide. That's how we plan on providing some dashboard retrocompatibility as well. I hope that was clear.
Yeah, so we're going to have a new, I guess, entry in the vertical menu that says observability, or is it going to replace?
It's going to replace the ones that are there right now. Like right now, there's a sub menu, and yeah, you can expect it to be replaced. And when you click on it, you basically land on an iframe of that.
Got it. And but that's what's happening in 15.3.
So that's what's
going to happen in 15.3. Okay.
That's what's going to happen. The plan is to have that in an iframe. You're authenticated with your user at the namespace. So shared at the namespace. It'll be in GitLab.com, not self-hosted yet. Not that you couldn't build it, put it together, but we won't support it yet. But we are definitely building it in a way that's self-hosted, will be available in a supported manner as well. So yeah, 15.3 is basically, let's put the basis of all of that in there. Let's put and so that we can iterate every month, right? And traces will be the first thing. No defaults metrics, but the ability to add your own metrics if you have Prometheus running as well.
Okay, and are we going to support like any default dashboards? Are we adding, like, if you use it for the first time in your project, will be there some default dashboards for error tracing, what you support already?
At first, no, but eventually that's definitely a goal, right? Like as soon as we have the bases in place, then it will be about thinking what kind of default dashboards can we put back in that work well. For default dashboards, one important thing is you need to know what's running on the customer side, like in their clusters, in their systems. There are things that you can do. There are certain things there are defaults that you can already put in, but it's complicated in the sense that you need access to these places, right? Like, for example, if you want to do default AWS dashboards, you need access to the AWS environments and everything. And these are systems that we haven't plumbed in yet. So plans to do that, absolutely, because that's what's part of doing a good experience. No need to rebuild what's shows by default, but a lot of plumbing is missing to have that out of the box.
I was more referring to what we already going to offer in 15.3, the error tracking. So there will be dashboards for that already included in this first iteration.
The error tracking is a bit different in 15.3. It runs inside of the Rails of the original UI, so you see it there. What we provide is a URL that you can then start sending your errors to with credentials and a way to create those credentials, and then they will already show up within the like I showed in the previous demo that I can eventually do again, but it will be inside of the Rails, right? Like not in this UI that I showed. Error tracking is a bit special because it existed before, so we already had UI in Rails, whereas tracing metrics are new in that sense.
Okay, so we will not give the customer the possibility to like aggregate or sum up errors in a Grafana dashboard or something like this, because they do not have even access to the data source. Because
exactly. It's the data right now. We leverage the UI completely from within. It's true that eventually we need to figure out a way to merge this, but this was more about getting it into front of customers quick again, since we had killed that feature.
In 15.3, Seb, are we going to have the ability to create an alert based on the metrics you're collecting?
No, because we're not collecting metrics in 15.3, right? We're doing only traces.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
So you can have your alert system, but your alert system is not within Grafana, which or our UI, right? Like it's separate. It's you'll be able to take this UI, point it to an existing Prometheus that has its own alerts and its own systems, but that's configured by a team outside, right? Like it's not what. But what we are going to start over the next month is to design how we want to get metrics in there so that the users don't have to set up a whole separate stack.
Got it.
We'll have more information about that.
I will add that if you want to get alerts in GitLab today, the way to do it is not have GitLab be the source of like something went wrong, trigger alert, but we do house alerts that are triggered in other systems. So that's something that the Respond team built a while back. So that's available today. And the benefit of having that is you can see all your alerts from different systems in a single place for incident management.
Right. So I was referring
that's
to
a separate thing.
Right. But what I was referring to is, I don't know, a few months ago, maybe last year, when you go to the monitoring screens and you see these dashboards of the metrics of the different clusters and all that, let's talk about like the memory consumption graph. You used to be able to click on there was a dot on the right, top right, and you were able to create an alert. Yes, exactly. That's what I was asking. Okay, but it'll eventually come back. But as Seth mentioned, with 15.3, I guess the customer could do that, but they will be doing it from their own Prometheus setup.
Correct.
That they can point to from Grafana.
That's exactly it. In 15.3, they already have it. They can bring all that information in the Grafana that's managed by us, or I should say I shouldn't say Grafana anymore. This is our fork now, but that's what they'll be able to do. And then we'll have more and more features.
How should we call it?
What? GitLab Observability UI. It's the name.
Okay, thank you.
And even Obstrace is now GitLab Observability components, right? Like, so.
The octopus is dead. I'm so sad.
It's how it is. It is how it is.
Hey, Darwin.
I prefer clarity to confusion. Yeah, no worries.
Sorry, we jumped all the way to product update because you weren't here yet, and I realized we should have start with gratitude anyway, even though you weren't here. Sorry about Seb to jump straight to your part. Apologies. So better late than never. Let's go back to the top let's start with some gratitude, which is a great practice. Thank you. Darwin, over to you.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Victor and his whole team for being very supportive of the GitOps workshop, and also the formulation of the underlying examples that kind of, I worked hard to conform to what he had apparently heard as customer feedback, that they wanted 2 projects. They wanted to use Customize, which I utterly loathe, but I stuck with what he had collected from customer feedback as a pattern. And I also appreciate just about GitLab. I heard a story from someone else who came from another company, and they were saying that at another company they were at, when someone would like from field would create something that didn't require product changes, that kind of opened up a whole new world for customers, that particular product organization would be really frustrated with them because they took some fame and fortune away from them. And I'm so glad that we just collaborate, wherever it comes from, everyone can contribute and it will be treated well. And so I just felt that Victor's support and his team's support through chat and other things, they were responding quickly, especially if I had a workshop upcoming, but also spoke to our culture in a very strong way that I really appreciate. Those are the kind of things that make it fun to come to work every morning, is no political junk going on. So thank you very much to Victor and team.
Awesome, great to hear. Definitely Victor saw the message, and I'll relay the note again. I'm also very thankful for one thing, like thinking about even this meeting in particular. All of us have opportunity to get into so many different spaces. Sometimes that's frankly overwhelming because I have no idea what's going on in a particular area. But at the same time, it's there's always something different and new to learn about, to get into, and that certainly makes work enjoyable and interesting and fun. Awesome. All right. Anyone else have anything to add? Great. Otherwise, we'll jump to Darwin's question about monitor.
Yeah, I think if we wanted to do this, this would just be a one-time test. And as far as I understand, this is Amazon doing a scalable Elastic service around these 2 capabilities, and it's just your standard service-oriented architecture endpoints. And I think I made this ask about a year ago just to see if there was interest. Just as background, what it earns us is a logo on the partner list on those particular products as being compatible. That's a win for it also increases the goodwill of our relationship. So on our partner team, we have a team on the other side that whenever they get one of these service listings, it's like a technical win for them. So it adds to their stack of gold. And Pete always tries to make sure he's making deposits in how everyone is being measured, even down to the individual level. And I think it's a great approach to alliances. But it seems like it'd be a one-time test. I just don't have, I could potentially set up the services. I just don't have an idea of what kind of testing would flush out known pain points, or what kind of spot checks would show that, yeah, there's a 95% chance this is completely compatible. And if any efforts around that are worth it to the monitoring team in terms of the extra the extra goodwill of being on those pages.
So I haven't looked at this since you pinged me last year, Darwin. So again, the idea is AWS has Prometheus as a service, and to be listed as a partner, we would work with that instance of Prometheus with our product and making sure that it works, something along those lines. Is that correct?
Yeah, and each service partner program is a little bit different. This one sounds pretty lightweight, that if we did a one-time test, it might be sufficient. Obviously, if we had a customer report a problem, and we've said that we're compatible, then that does create a little bit of an obligation to check out what's going on and if it's on our side or their side kind of thing.
So at the time, we were in pursuit of Seb and team, and we knew we were going to get rid of what we have that existed. This may make more sense now, because in theory, what Seb is going to be building for metrics could have Prometheus instances forward metrics from anywhere, including from Amazon.
Yeah, that's how it works. Yeah.
So this
Just to be clear, this would be the same as like today when you deploy Lab. If you want metrics, you have to deploy a Prometheus, and so you would have to self-manage it, or it could be a managed service like this. So it's actually taking yet another part of GitLab when we put it on cloud and farming it out to a managed service that is one of Amazon's new managed services. So from a customer perspective, they love this stuff because now there's no hosts to manage, no performance to manage, nothing. They just turn it on and it auto scales to their needs. So very similar to using S3 for our file systems, as we've done with a lot of stuff.
It sounds like it would be something like what we've done with the GitLab Kubernetes operator with OpenShift, right, to get certified.
It's not a certification process. It's much lighter than that. Yeah. Right. So it's and the Amazon Linux 2 and Amazon Linux 2022 ones are a little more intensive. We have to provide logs to show security testing and stuff like that. This one, it would be good if we did do it to collect the evidence that shows that we tested it, you know, just whether it's logs or screen caps and stuff. So we could, if they require that for this.
And I'm sure they would list us in some web page or something, right?
Yeah, well, that actually links there are the actual web pages. Where
there you go. Okay.
Yeah. So I linked you not just to the service, but to the partner list on the service page, and we would be listed there. What I've been trying to do is I will run all the details I can for the team. Any teams who do these service, like for the Amazon Linux 2022 and Amazon Linux 2 for the distribution team, I'm doing all the stuff I possibly can. Sometimes there's a spreadsheet and I answer every question I can, and then I ask the team to validate it and tell them, hey, I don't know how to provide this, or could we do some testing to provide this? And then I will set up the service if no one on the team has Amazon familiarity. So I do everything I possibly can to be the catalyst to making it happen, if the team is willing to engage.
We do this as a follow-up. So 17 are going to be working on this at some point in the future with regards to our metrics. And this could be something they look at when they get to that stage. Darwin, if you don't mind creating an issue on the Prometheus AWS thing, that'd be awesome. I'm less certain about the Grafana one because we're not Grafana. We have our own UI. So we're not going to be certified for Grafana.
Well, it's just a service. So today you have to point our UI at a Grafana.
Yeah, that's the point. We're going to be pointing, our UI is going to be our own UI. It's not going to be Grafana.
It's a fork of Grafana.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a fork.
Yeah. That's what it's basically. It's not going to be compatible forever, right? Like we will keep some retro compatibility for some dashboards, but not for everything. But for the Prometheus parts, do create an issue. That's 100% the way we're doing metrics and how it works.
Perfect. So just a Prometheus issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's called GitLab observability, not Grafana, right?
Well, now ours is called GitLab observability UI.
Yeah, exactly. Because customers, I can just see customers going, "Oh, what are you guys using for that functionality?" You know, so should not call it Grafana.
I'll create it, and whenever you're able to get to it. Okay. Victor answered the next one, but just basically for those of you who are architecting Just understand that if you pick to need a DNS host instead of a port for any new service you stand up, it has a ripple effect that suppresses adoption, because frequently DNS is not in the same place as firewalling. So in a standard infrastructure as code stack, I can say open this port. Frequently firewalling is inside the platform provider, but frequently DNS is not. It's completely separate, a special software or special service. And so then that same infrastructure as code can't very easily reach out and do that host tweak. So if you have a decision and it's not hard to tack towards a port, I tend to, in this regard to architecture, favoring a port is a good idea as far as adoption friction. I take an approach in architecture I call adoption-driven development, which means that one of the double checkpoints against my implementations is will one of these suppress adoption either by the level of knowledge needed or the level of recoding needed, and if it will, then choose the other option if depending on the weighting of all the other things going into that decision. And you might view it as, oh, well, that's okay for new customers, but actually you can get enough of these built up that people won't adopt a major version because they got to do a whole bunch of infrastructure as code visits and other things to get to the next version of GitLab. And so they'll start holding up on a version when there's too many of these knock-on effects that they have to test with complicated IAC stacks. So I just wanted to share that with everyone, that if you can favor opening new ports instead of requiring DNS changes at all, that helps everyone downstream from you.
Besides CAS, do we have recent examples of new services that require this, Darwin?
No, not to my knowledge. But what I did was immediately upon trying to figure out CAS, I was like, oh, well, we should probably just be able to do a port, right? And I found that we can. But then Victor's team said, oh, don't do that. If you do that, you've got to install from source. And I didn't even want to know the details of why. So in that case, if that was a literal constraint that they couldn't get around, then it made sense. We'd have to resort to DNS if it was like 16 times easier for the engineering team. But I also understand that it's not necessarily, sometimes in software engineering teams, it's not necessarily, there's not necessarily a view of weighing the friction impacts of making a decision, port or host. So I don't know of any more, but I also won't know of any more usually till it's too late. That's why I bring it up. Yeah.
Cool, thank you for the note, this is helpful. All right, I'm gonna jump down to my point under product update. So recently I was watching the issue while Chris is on vacation, and the ability to update protected environments. The issue was we introduced a new capability in the UI. In the UI, only owners could update or change a protected environment, whereas previously maintainers could. So having two different behaviors is actually obviously not good, but the fundamental question is, how should we look at roles and permissions when it comes to protected stuff? So Chris, sorry, yeah, thank you for the clarification. It's group level protected environments. So given that we have a bunch of folks that may be dealing with this on a regular basis, I know Sam Martin's not here. Just wondering how has it been your experience in the field talking to customers about roles and permission? That's one question. And also for Chris, why did we make the decision we made, making it more strict, meaning only owners could update these going forward? Turn that over to Chris.
Yeah, I could answer that first, and then maybe if anyone from the field or representing the field can hear or have heard anything or dealt with this, love to hear feedback. Yeah, Kevin. Yeah, so clarification, group level, we're talking just group level. I got that clarification from Shinya too, because yeah, so group level, we made the decision that only owner roles can make those configuration settings. And so rationale for that was, at least at the moment, we wanted to maintain some consistency for the other related settings in CI/CD for group level. And so right now, those are only restricted to owners. That was one reason. This was raised by an immediate customer need. And so this decision, this option solved that immediately in the short term. So that was a factor that I was considering. If we went the other direction, it would have taken a lot of reconfiguration on their ends to support, to rearrange the roles and permissions. And I was weighing that in my mind as well. Another reason is Shinya did look up some data around who is actually making these changes using the API. And he found that only owner roles were doing that anyway. And it was, and it's not very frequently used. So kind of another reason that maybe owner makes the most sense for right now for this type of change. I think, Kevin, you pointed out on the issue that I think you were asking whether we should be thinking about highly regulated industries versus maybe a more broad, general kind of building or making that product design decision for my more widely applicable audience. In my mind, this feature already is sort of built for highly regulated industries. So from that lens, it makes sense to cater to their needs a little bit more. That was another sort of line of thinking for me. And then lastly, in my mind, I think it's tough both ways, but it seems to me starting with a more restrictive model is easier to change in the future. I'm curious if others disagree, but to me, it seemed like it's something that we can revisit in the future and potentially open it up to more roles. So, and for all those reasons right now, it made sense to go that direction.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. When I looked at the data that Shinya provided, to me, that's not conclusive because we're looking at 7 days. And when I branched that out, it doesn't necessarily show more people. I wasn't able to show whether or not those users that did something were owners because I couldn't figure out how to do it. So what we do know is like, this is not something people change frequently, which makes sense. But how can you actually be sure that you don't have, this won't break anything? That is a curious statement to me because the data I saw did not conclude that for me.
Gotcha. Yeah, I could take a closer look at that, Kevin. And then maybe if we wanted to follow up, discuss it more.
Okay.
There was about 3 different essays met with whoever the PM is in charge of roles-based authentication and control, or whatever we call that in GitLab. And
Hannah, probably.
Yeah, it was 18 months ago, so it might have been someone else. I think it might have shifted, or maybe it was even 24 months ago. But we're as a product, we're pretty inflexible in this area compared to, and when I say competitors, I don't mean just GitHub. I mean like all DevOps tooling. So customers come to us with DevOps tools where they can use Google Groups directly without having RBOK built in at all. And so I don't know that we'll get there anytime ever, but if we can't get there, then I think custom roles should be pushed on harder by product managers who have dependencies like this, because otherwise you end up in situations where we just have too many separation of duties lockouts, where now, okay, you have to be owner to do that, but we don't want them to have this owner permission that does this other thing. And it just a constant mess with enterprise customers, especially, are used to highly granular permissions definitions. So Kevin, from like your level, I would say putting more pressure and don't let it balloon out to, oh, we got to do a whole refactor of RBOK. No, it's just, why don't we just get an iteration of custom roles supported. I would also voluntarily constrain of not allowing customization of existing roles, because that's going to complicate support beyond imagination.
Yeah, I agree with all of your points. I'd love to get your thought, and perhaps we can have a follow-up conversation about is how do we slice this problem so that it's actually
Well, yeah,
deliverable in some small way? Because when I think about, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, quite frankly, we don't have a way for you as a stage PM to create a cross-cutting concern and put a lot of pressure on this, because this is a huge cross-cutting concern. We have no cross-cutting PMs that you can appeal to. Hey, you know, not security, but authentication and RBOC PM. There is no such thing. So I think a lot of these really big issues that are cross-cutting, we suffer under for lots of years. Another one's the developer journeys. Like .NET ecosystem is languishing. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry because we don't have the ability to create a little bit of chaos with a PM who does just .NET ecosystem and is able to interface with you all and say, look, we can get this .NET ecosystem journey in a place where we can make billions next year if I can have these two key features from you. So there's a bigger issue here of ineffectual ability for someone like yourself. You have this one concern for this one thing, but it keeps coming up again and again and again and again across all the stages. And so it'd be wonderful if you all had some sort of mechanism where you could aggregate the pressure and show the need across many different concerns in each vertical.
I'll disagree.
Sorry,
I know there is a working group at the moment, and obviously working groups have not always been super effective at affecting change. Looking at, I think the charter of that group is to look at the different places, roles, and permissions in different stages are needed. But
okay.
if all enterprise software in this space ultimately are forced by their customers to need to have some sort of flexible RBAC strategy. I have not seen an example where that's not the case, where it's like someone really designs something so fantastic it works for everybody. It's just not a thing, right? Yeah, this is, again, like you said, this like pops its head like once every month or 2 months. So it's nothing new. But yeah, we do need probably from the product leadership level to push investing in this because it is super important. Curious to Darwin, you, Zhang, and Jan, like how do you advise people when they're frustrated with how roles and permission work? What is your playbook? Is there a playbook?
A lot of red face, because without configurability, like you'll get into a customer who's highly regulated and they just can't have these two permissions together. And they might have to make, in some cases, a product decision or get super custom about something, or they're doing bizarre workarounds because they just can't. You can also separate projects helps. So like separate build from deploy, which we do in the GitOps anyway, but it's also frequently pulls these issues apart nicely. Also, Kevin, I have a video about how GitLab groups can be used, and all kinds of GitLab user-only groups can be used all over the map. And a lot of people, it's not surfaced well in the product. So for instance, you can't pick a group as an approver, and there's not even the stanza that says groups in the picker for approvers unless you've added the group to the project. So it's very not discoverable where are all the places you can use user-only groups, or that you can create groups that you're not allowed to create projects in order to make them user groups. Both. So this one video kind of tries to tie all that together, and that helps a little. We have a lot of Legos, and if you show them some opinionated ways of putting together the Legos to create a little bit richer RBOC scenario, it helps. Sorry, Jan.
It looks like more something that belongs into the documentation, if you ask me. Like this grouping feature beyond grouping projects, but to use to group members.
Well,
I think that's not highlighted enough in the documentation.
Well, yeah, but further than that, we don't. So I already have an issue open, and Jackie's interacting on it, that when we punt product feature request into a workaround or a working solution, we never get that in docs and we never commit to maintain it. Yet we've punted a feature request into it. And so customers are seeing a feature right in the UI of another product and saying, I need this. And we say, oh, well, you just do that this way. And then that explanation, that's a blog or a sample repo that starts to rot. And so we don't get that a lot of times we do have the feature with some assembly required, but we don't maintain it even when we close product feature requests based on a good workaround. And so I have this, and I actually put this on another item here. There's a couple things I'd love to make for monitoring, but the fact that they won't be maintained in perpetuity is a disincentive for me, because then it's, then it's just like a one-time thing that somebody stumbles upon in 2 years and can't get it working. So we have a bigger issue that opinionated assemblages of things we already have can be very effective for helping with this, but we never kind of institutionalize it to the point of maintaining that opinionated scenario. Or we're not good at it yet, I should say.
And just to look back to the general role and RBAC stuff, that's luckily something we in commercial don't experience that frequently, because we usually deal with smaller customers, like less regulated. But I can imagine that for the enterprise, it's surely an issue and something that pops up frequently in the discussion.
Cool. Zane, not sure you're still there. What's your experience been on this topic? May not be there anymore. Okay, we don't have to belabor this anymore. Thank you. Next item is a FYI. We're working on our OKRs. We're really, I don't know what your experience with OKR has been, but it's a work in progress for sure for the R&D area space. So hopefully we are going to be all producing OKRs in the right way. So you can take a look at what we have planned for deployment, which is kind of like a Uber categorization of both configure and release and part of monitor. There's one created by Victor for configure. There's another one created by Chris for release. That's in progress. We hope to have it all drafted up by the end of this week. So if you're interested, and we hope you are, take a look and please provide your feedbacks. And then the next point is, over the last few iterations of this meeting, I haven't seen a lot of aggregated feedback for our particular area. How do we enable more of it? Is that even reasonable? Curious to your thoughts.
Yeah, it feels really difficult. I have been thinking about how to gather feedback from the solution architects. Like I usually post like a little summary of what we discuss here to the solution architect channels. I 1 week in advance, I ask generally just in the channel to pass on feedback. But yeah, the engagement is pretty low. I'm not sure how frequently solution architects approach you product managers directly with questions, where we could rather say, okay, pass it along to Jan. He will aggregate it. It's not really something important now. But yeah, I'm discussing this also with Tim and Vladimir Salvo on how to engage, at least from the solution architect side. Small iterations. Next time, I think I will do a little poll up front. Maybe people respond to that, and we'll see.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Just quick answer on your question. How often? It's whenever there is something very specific.
And usually a very high value account putting a lot of pressure on that specific feature, right? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
It's not necessarily representative of we knock off 40
Yeah.
more sales with a certain feature. It's this particular sale that's
Right.
huge is hinging on it. Yeah.
And there it makes sense, but still, like, getting an overall sentiment from prospects, from customers, that is something we need to be able to collect for this meeting. And
yeah,
I don't have the idea of how to do that, but maybe we'll get there.
I have an idea. I think that right now we push everyone to issues, and not only SAs, but the SALs know to do that. And it's also known to not be very effective in true prioritization. So I don't think it makes sense to start trying to gather this through, like this meeting is synchronous. I don't think it makes sense when we got so much asynchronous data out there in a system that's known to be the way to influence this, and then separate out and hope that if Jan or I keep polling that we'll get some sort of true sense instead of just the favorites list of the customers of several SAs who spend the time to voice, right? So it would be better just to get really good metrics over our issues, like how active is this issue and how old is it, and start scoring them. And then I think that would be, and then we can keep driving SAs to and help them as ambassadors. We could potentially help them find the right issue to advocate on. But the problem right now is there's no advanced metrics. There's issues out there that are 5 years old, and customers saying, are you going to fix this? I've seen one lately where there's something that's 5 years old. We finally fixed it, and now the fix is broken. It's got a bug, and now the bug is falling into the same another 5 years before it gets addressed. So I think if you focused on that, you would get a lot more purchase, because you'd start addressing customer frustration, because their frustration, they see visibly already that out there, and they voice their frustration when stuff is old and unaddressed. Also, we have in Periscope or something, it aggregates all the deal values of any posted links that are put in there for Salesforce. So there's all kinds of data there already about aging, desire, recent activity, customers, customer account value, deal value. So it just seems like better metrics around that, and then being able to make sure your tags are good, that one relates to monitoring or relates to whatever.
Still, there's a challenge.
It's almost like we're saying, oh, what we've been doing for 5 years is not very effective, so let's do another thing, and it happens to be synchronous, is what we're implying by saying, how do I go back synchronously to the whole SA community and try to gather this data when they're already asynchronously pounding the daylights out of what they've been told to use?
How do you, so one question I've been always curious about is, how do SAs and TAMs actually find the issue? Because there's so many issues, and lots of issues are repeats.
Dude, you have to be, well, when you're in IT, and especially on the SA side, you got to be a Google expert already, but I'm telling you, it's hard. And the way that issues are broken down causes them to get diffuse and lost. Another frustration of mine is authorship is lost. I'll put in a really cool suggestion, and by the time it hits the release announcement, there's no idea that I brought that up. That's a totally separate issue that makes me not want to contribute. But this one issue of just the way it gets broken up and everything, and now what do you vote on? And especially when issues are closed, when they close them, I don't get that. Let's move it over here and close this one, and a whole bunch of value and conversation and Salesforce URLs. So the process of breaking down features for issues and epics for work does not honor the ability to detect aggregated demand and current demand. And so that's a frustration that, well, this is the way you do it. We're not going to stand up a parallel system, add comments, but we're also going to manage the issues for development in a way that completely diffuses the value of the weighting we're trying to add.
Kevin, I was gonna just on this topic, if we for me at least, if we look at the, like, if you scroll to the top of the agenda for like field update, I think we tried to be pretty thoughtful about what type of feedback or types of things we want to discuss in this meeting. And yet, at Dorm's point, we don't want to recreate the entire sort of system we've built of async communication and feedback and Salesforce updates and issues and everything. But like, I think maybe it could be worth like thinking about how, if these are still relevant, how we can focus on getting this type of thing. So like customer escalations, maybe specific use cases, success or failure stories, like those types of things, which, you know, which at least to us, when we like brainstormed this list, we felt like we weren't getting as much. So yeah,
You
agree
also,
that, yeah.
Enhancing the data collection, like in customer escalations, if they had to attach or they were highly encouraged and you actually showed them how you used issues and epics to a given escalation, that this escalation is because of this bug or this new bug I entered, then you could start automatically starting to understand, whoa, we're getting like 50 escalations around these 3 feature requests that aren't actually that complicated. We're just not prioritizing because we're getting somewhat beat by so many other people. So kind of the quality side or the bug side, if you can get it, but in order for people to do that extra effort, they have to know it's being used. So I don't do a lot more customer votes on issues because I just suspect it's a very low signal input. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Chris, you're absolutely right. Agreed. Okay, we're almost out of time. There's some async updates, and then Samia wanted to highlight that there's a gigaohm radar that was just published, and that's something that we can share with customers. So please take a look and then share with all your friends. I haven't read it yet. I'll read it shortly. Awesome. Thanks all. This is fun.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your day.
Everyone, thank you.
Bye.